It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Hey, this is Kurt Busch, driver of the number 41 Haas Automation Chevrolet. You're listening to The Front Stretch.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. Get all the information you could ever possibly need about Joe's Karting online at joeskarting.com. Again, karting with a K. Like them on Facebook. Check their videos out on YouTube. Follow them on Twitter. All the great ways that you can get exposed to Joe's Karting. Before you come over to the Daytona 500 party next weekend, make sure you head over to Joe's Karting and get a little bit of karting in before the Daytona kicks off. The Daytona 500 kicks off at 1 o'clock.
And if your lead foot still got a cramp after the party, you can go back to Joe's.
We got a show lined up for you today. Turns 1 and 2, we're going to talk about some of the big news stories that have struck NASCAR since the season ended at Homestead back in November. We'll cover some of the big news stories, kind of reiterate some of the updates, some of those, and also talk about some of the news stories that happened this week. In turn number 3, we'll sit down with the driver of the number 62 Xfinity car for Richard Childress Racing. He's going to be racing at the Daytona 500 next weekend. And we talked to Brendan a couple of weeks ago. We're just now getting around to doing that interview. So there's going to be some conversation that's a little bit outdated, but the majority of the conversation is talking about how Brendan got access to that ride and his plans for the 2017 season for the Xfinity series. And then in turn number 4, we will talk about the Daytona 500 and make the official announcement. It is out. It is done. I can finally stop stressing about it. Well, at least about getting it ready. Now I just have to stress about people having fun. The Pick'ems contest. I sent out the email Friday, a couple days ago, and we'll talk more about that when we come up here in turn number 4. All right, turn number 1, brought to you by Joe's Karting as always, talking about some of the big news stories. Now, one of the biggest news stories in the offseason, what would you say was bigger, Dirk? Would you say the NASCAR points system or Carl Edwards? What was bigger in your opinion?
In my opinion, was Carl Edwards' story because it was more of a shock.
Yeah, absolutely. He sat up and had a press conference about, what was it? When did he make that announcement? It was
3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was it December or was it January?
It was this year.
It was in the new year, right. It was in the new year. But there was a story that came out, and quite honestly, I don't want to give out the name of the guy who wrote the article because I think this is clickbait. I think this is clearly fake news kind of material, and I don't want to give him any more credibility than is possible. But he tries to bring light to one of the conspiracy theories that was out there. Which, Dirk, you and I had talked about this. One of the conspiracy theories that Carl was being paid to sit down and not race at Joe Gibbs Racing for 2017. He was being paid by, there was rumors that it was Dodge had approached him to be the flagship driver when they return in 2018. We've heard other teams have bought his contract and paid him to sit down. And this article that came out said that Penske was paying Carl Edwards $15 million to not race at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2017. And unfortunately, if you read the entire article, you realize how this guy just blatantly ignored facts.
Well, I mean, that's, like I said, we talked originally when the story broke that there was some conspiracy theory stuff. And the main one I heard that was Aris, the primary sponsor for the 19 car. They don't sponsor every race, but they're the primary. And also sponsor the 19 car in the Xfinity series that Daniel Suarez drove, is a Mexican-based company, whereas Daniel Suarez is from. That's kind of like his checkbook that he brought with him to Joe Gibbs Racing. And the conspiracy theory stuff that I'd read was that they said, if Daniel wins the series, that he's moving up. Mm-hmm. Joe Gibbs, he is moving up. Not next year when Matt Kenseth retires or whatever. Mm-hmm. He is going to drive the 19 car, or the 19 car won't say Aris on it. Right. Well, then you'd have the deal where you'd probably have a fight over sponsor dollars and all that kind of stuff, breach of contract and everything. So there was so much in there that I was going, man, I just can't buy that. Yeah. But it's happening so suddenly that you got to look at it.
We have talked about this 100 times on the show. It is so odd to have somebody at a top-tier organization at the peak of his game. I mean, Carl Edwards was, you could easily say he was at the peak of his game because he finished 3rd or 4th in the championship standings that year, and he was 10 laps away from winning the championship.
Well, he finished 4th by default. He was, like he said, he goes, as far as I'm concerned, I won the championship. And he did have the fastest car. He got involved in the late race altercation after the caution, So he did not win the championship, but you're definitely at the top of his game.
The article that we're talking about says that Carl Edwards had a rather confusing press conference that didn't answer many questions. And that was the first flag that threw up for me because I thought, no, it answered pretty much every question. Because Carl not only laid out the 3 reasons why he was stepping away from full-time racing, careful not to use the term retiring, but it also exactly answered the question of, are you in negotiations with another manufacturer or another team to race for them? And Carl blatantly said no. You got to take it for what it's worth. And I think Carl is an honest enough person that that question would not have been asked and it would not have been answered if that was the deal. If Penske was paying Carl to sit down for $15 million and not race for a season, then I got to imagine if Carl says no, it's not happening.
Well, I don't know why Penske would pay him to sit down for a season, and then he would show up in Phoenix as a driver coach for Daniel Suarez.
And
that makes absolutely no sense on either end.
Any professional sport, you sit out for a year, you're so far behind the competition. I mean, the cars that roll out next Sunday at Daytona are going to be different than the cars that finish the season at Homestead. And they're going to, because they're going to make advancements. There's going to be techniques that drivers are going to come across. There's going to be slight changes. There are going to be rule changes. I mean, Dale Jr. is at a big enough disadvantage going into Daytona. I mean, he's obviously going to he's had some testing and he's done some practice time, so he'll get caught back up to speed. But for Carl to sit out for a year, and not just a year in your 20s, he's a year in his mid-30s, his late 30s. He's 37.
Yeah, but this isn't pro football or baseball, you know, where that's that big a deal. Because a driver can go till he's 50 without any problem.
Look at Jeff Gordon. Came in to fill in for Dale Earnhardt Jr., and quite honestly, I think Alex Bowman did a better job behind that wheel, minus Martinsville, which is Gordon, one of Gordon's best tracks. I think that Gordon is a perfect example of how when you sit away, you're out of these cars for a prolonged amount of time, whether it be 6 months or be a year, you're behind the 8 ball. I mean, you're so far behind, it's going to take you half a season to get caught back up.
But the car changes between 2015 and 2016 were huge. The car changes from 2016 to 17 aren't very big and, I mean, very minuscule. Who knows what the changes will be between the 2016 and the 2018 cars?
Right. And so the point I wanted to bring up with talking about this whole thing is that, unfortunately, this guy ignored facts. I mean, Carl sat up there and answered every question, but his opening line gave a very confusing press conference where he didn't answer any questions. And according to my sources, which he doesn't say where the source comes from, he just says, I've been told, that's his quote on his website, I've been told Carl's being paid $15 million to sit down by Penske, and he would be a third Penske driver in 2018. Jayski and other news sources did the actual thing that news sources do, and they went and found information, and they went and asked people, and an official statement from Team Penske says there is absolutely no truth to this article. We are not paying Carl Edwards to sit down.
Again, why would they? Oh, we're afraid of Carl Edwards. We don't want him racing against our guys. So, you know, we know he's the best, so we're going to pay him a bunch of money. You know, obviously the captain's not going to say that. Roger would never do anything like that.
I can't imagine Roger Penske would pay somebody to sit out. Why would you waste $15 million? I mean, granted, Penske wasn't the team that beat him, but there was plenty of other teams out there that beat Carl Edwards when it comes down to the end of the year, including some of his own teammates. I can't fathom how this could even be true. And it really frustrates me that somebody put this article out there. And this goes along with the whole thing we've experienced over the last year with fake news. People that they act like they have a website, so you think there's some legitimacy to them. And it turns out that they're just some guy sitting behind a keyboard that wrote what he thought was true. And it turns out to be nothing of the case.
Let's just take a look at the fact that what if he's right? Next year we'll apologize to him when Carl climbs into a Penske car.
No, I'll just change history and I'll say I knew all along.
Going to play politician?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the other news stories, we'll touch on them real quick. The possible return of Dodge. Dirk, it feels to me like this is getting more and more likely. I keep hearing these stories of Dodge executives having meetings with NASCAR and in contact with people, and you start to see these little stories pop up. And maybe it's because it's the off season, so there's nothing much to do and not much to talk about. But I kind of feel like it's becoming more and more possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen or it's really likely. I'm saying it feels to me like it's becoming more and more possible. possible.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, we've been reading the stuff about Audi coming in. Everybody has thought for the last 10 years that the next two teams possibly that would come into racing after Toyota made the jump as far as foreign manufacturers was going to be Honda and Nissan.
Yeah.
Because they're big in the IndyCar circuit and that type of deal. And Nissan actually came out with a truck with a V8 engine and everything. All they had to do, I'm not sure if the Titan carries a pushrod engine or not, but, I mean, Toyota didn't have one, so they designed their pushrod engine around just for racing, which is what, Nissan or Honda both got the money and the talented engineers that they could do the same thing, but It's never happened.
The biggest hurdle they're going to have to overcome is that I don't think Dodge wants to get back into NASCAR with a lower-tier team. It's not going to be a big enough entry back into the sport if they join up with Front Row Racing or I'm trying to think of some smaller teams that struggle with sponsorships and in driver development. When Toyota came in, they came in with Joe Gibbs Racing, who wasn't what they are today. They weren't that big of a team back then, but they were an up-and-coming team. They had some talented drivers driving for them.
Well,
they'd
had some championships. Tony Stewart won a championship. Bobby Laponte won a championship. I mean, they'd had some championships.
Yes.
They weren't any type of a second-rate organization.
So Dodge has got to come in with a big organization, and I keep thinking that the best organization I guess I shouldn't say that now because I've changed my mind, but a good organization that I was always saying would be perfect for Dodge to go after would be Roush. But if we're talking about entering into the sport with a top-tier organization and turning things really quickly to be competitive, I don't think Roush can produce that because obviously your engine manufacturer is not the issue at Roush.
No, it's not the engines. I don't know if Roush has the personnel that maybe they worked with the Dodges before, but obviously if they come back with a new car and come in, it's probably going to be the Challenger. It's probably not going to be the Charger.
Right. Let's take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. We'll talk about some of the other news stories. We'll talk about the stage lengths for the Daytona 500 next weekend, the points system, the damaged vehicle policy, a lot more to come here on the front stretch.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bay, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Hey, this is Ryan Newman, driver of the number 31 Caterpillar Chevrolet, and you're listening to the front stretch.
And welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 2, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube in Council Bluffs, online at thelube.com, and on Facebook, Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs. Make sure you like them because now's kind of the calm before the storm. Coming up in the middle of March, you're going to start getting information about posts for
Bike night.
And March Madness and classic car nights and kids touch-a-truck events and all-you-can-eat wings on Tuesdays and kids nights on Mondays and a lot of great stuff going on at Quaker Steak and Lube. Make sure you like their Facebook page, and we want to say make sure you join us Sunday the 26th, next Sunday for the Daytona 500 viewing party. We'll be kicking things off at noon. I believe the race set to kick off at 1 p.m., so make sure you get into Quaker Steak and Lube. Get set up. We'll have a computer ready to go if you want to get involved in the Pick'ems contest. Let's talk about some more of the racing news that's going on. Dirk, last weekend we had talked about the damaged vehicle policy, and turns out I misunderstood.
I tried to reach a couple different of my tech inspector buddies. I did get a hold of one. We talked about a couple things. One that we did talking about the damaged car policy. Mm-hmm. And you were stating that, the car would come down pit road and they could work for 4 minutes and 45 seconds. And then the crew chief would send them around and they could come back and get another 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. That is not the case.
Right.
They get one shot with 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. The speeding penalty of the 15 seconds is if they speed coming down pit road to get to their pit stall to start that 5-minute clock. If they speed, it's 15 seconds off, which makes it a 4-minute and 45-second clock. Mm-hmm. Then they have to go out after that time, be on the track. When the race is green, they have to run one lap. And NASCAR has always had a minimum speed. It's 90% of the pole speed. They have to run a green flag lap at minimum speed or better. And then they can get another 5 minutes if they want to come back in and tweak the car a little bit and work on it some more. They come in for 2 minutes or whatever they want to do. But if they go out and run a couple laps and they can't make minimum speed, they're going to the garage. They're done.
And my confusion was I thought that they could go and run a lap under caution. While the caution was still out, they could go and run a lap. That's not the case. They have to run a lap at minimum race speed under green flag. So, I mean, honestly, and I got to thinking about it after the show on Sunday. 5 minutes on pit road is an eternity for those teams. I mean, they can make a lot of changes in 5 minutes. If you got to go out and run race speed, minimum race speed for a lap, and then come back down for another 5 minutes, at best case scenario, you bring out the caution, you make your 5 minute changes, you go out and run your lap. I mean, you're going a couple of laps down.
Well,
I think so.
It all depends. At Daytona, you might not, because a pace lap takes a couple minutes. I mean, by the time they run through and everybody else does a pit stop and they line back up, the 5 minutes is burned up. Now, at Bristol, no. You're several laps down just for the pit stop there. Let alone trying to stay in there for 5 minutes when they're doing 4 laps a minute.
A lot of people said this rule is going to affect Daytona a lot, and I can't disagree anymore. Because when you get into a wreck at Daytona, you're probably not going to be able to come down pit road and fix your car in 5 minutes. Now, there's been plenty of instances, but I'm talking about the big ones. And I think there's going to be a lot of big ones next Sunday at Daytona with this stage racing that we'll talk about here in a few minutes that's been rolled out over the last couple of weeks. I think this damaged car policy is going to come more into effect at your short tracks and your speedways. Places like Richmond and Darlington, that's where this is really going to come into effect, because those are the tracks that, and again, I go back to believing that this is NASCAR's way of trying to reduce the number of debris cautions. That when we come back to green, we're running 10, 15 laps, and all of a sudden somebody's car has shifted enough to where something they tried to repair fell off, and now we got to throw a caution to clear off the racing surface. NASCAR's trying to get away from that with this, and I think that's really going to play into effect at your tracks like Darlington and Richmond, where you see a lot of cars torn up at the end of the races that they were beaten and banged and kept back together and kind of held together with 500-mile-an-hour tape.
Well, you can mark my words, where this is really going to come into play is Talladega and the Chase. That's going to be the hugest race for this policy.
You think so?
Oh, without a doubt.
Well, I've learned over the last year and a half I'm not supposed to disagree with you.
But they will. Martinsville, Bristol, and Richmond, I think, are going to be your 3 big tracks where this damaged car policy takes into effect. I'm curious to see, because I've sat and thought about, the tracks, what it's going to do on the road courses. Because there's a lot of times you see front-end damage when they run over the rumble strips and stuff like that. So it's hard to see what's going to happen there. But even if a car just goes through the grass there in the infield in a tri-oval at like you saw Carl Edwards a few years ago at the All-Star race, where he won the race and then he went to go do a burnout in the infield and tore the car in half. I mean, he had checkers and records. Ditch. Exactly. But what if you get bumped down and you go through the grass and you hit that and tear the front end halfway off? Now you only get 5 minutes to fix that, and you can't put any parts on it.
Right. I do like this policy, because as much as I like to see competitors out there really, fighting for every lap, I hate seeing debris cautions.
Oh, they're the worst.
I hate seeing debris cautions.
And now they've come out today. There was just an article. You put it up on Facebook, and I know that's where I'd read it, but I talked about that with my buddy about the new inspection procedures, and they're going to start doing penalties at the race site.
Yeah.
These, you lose your pit stall selection or something. You qualified third, but you had this issue. Well, now you're picking last. And that is a big deal at some tracks. Some tracks, it don't matter a hill of beans. But at other tracks, it's huge.
The way the policy was laid out last year was that if you went through the pre-race inspection or the pre-practice inspection or pre-qualifying inspection, and you failed a couple of times, then NASCAR would review that failure on Tuesday or Wednesday and then divvy out penalties. And I'm telling you, Dirk, the penalties sheet got massive towards the end of the season, because it was all the chase contenders they're trying to find these little areas, and the new laser inspection was catching them, and they're doing these, nope, go back, fix this, and then come back through. And NASCAR got tired of it, but the problem was it wasn't affecting the drivers on the racetrack. They were trying to find these little gray areas. So that's what this new inspection policy is instead of being, and it's kind of deceiving because it's not a new inspection policy, it's a distribution of penalty policy, I guess is what you could really call it. instead of being ruled on Tuesday, now the ruling comes down on race day. And teams could lose as much as pit stall selections.
Practice time.
That
could be huge.
Some of the big ones I saw was that on when the green flag came out, you come back down pit road and do a pass-through.
Yeah.
Or you're held on pit road for a lap. So they could really get penalized, and these penalties will stack up. I think this is going to help curtail a lot of this sneakiness that crews were trying to get away with.
Well, and they've gone through this repetition stuff, like your third offense, you've done the same thing, so you lose 15 minutes of practice time. Fourth offense, you use 30 minutes of practice time. NASCAR is putting emphasis on the engines, fuel, and safety in pre-race inspection. So there's no more template, no more room of doom, any of that stuff in pre-practice inspection. NASCAR's thinking is if you go out and your body is completely out of whack, the only person you're hurting by practicing that way is yourself, because you're going to have it right to go race.
Yeah.
So if you haven't practiced with a car, that now you got to race with, if you had to tweak the body all over the place, the only person you hurt was yourself. So NASCAR's going away from a lot of that early inspection, and now anybody that's ever been to the garage, you'll see a guy pull out of an inspection line and they'll fix something and then they'll back right back in line. No more of that either. When you miss something in inspection, no matter where it's at, you go back to your garage stall, and then an inspector's going to walk back there with you, and you will go into your garage stall and you will fix whatever the issue is, and then you will go to the end of the line and start over.
Yeah. These are things that most people aren't going to see on Sunday or race day. But it's going to show up in the news headlines later. And really, it's just NASCAR trying to say to these teams, listen, we realize as a sanctioning body, their job is to make sure teams aren't straying too far outside of the rule book. And as teams, it's their job to find the areas that they could stray as far as possible, because they find these little things. Brad Keselowski talked about it last year about these transformer cars. And NASCAR really tried to mandate it at the end of the chase, the end of the year, about on the cool-down lap after races, teams were weaving back and forth to try to reset their car after the cars had been set up to change as the race was going on. NASCAR doesn't want this stuff. And unfortunately, this is why, at the end of the day, the reason why we have cars on the tracks that don't look like cars on the showroom, that's not NASCAR's fault. That's the teams. It wasn't NASCAR that said, hey, let's come out with this completely different looking car. It was teams finding these little things and slowly, over a decade, over 15 years, slightly changing these cars. And then NASCAR has to come out and say, okay, we got to unify this now. We got to find a rule for this, and we got to bring you back in here. And so I get a real kick out of being relatively new to the racing world at how much teams push NASCAR, and NASCAR has to push back. And this happens on the local levels with I-80, Eagle Raceway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All your tracks, your sanctioning bodies, the Nebraska 360s has to deal with this all the time. The Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series, the USMTS, United States Touring Modified Series. This stuff happens all over the place, and it's kind of funny to watch that all sanctioning bodies and all drivers, doesn't matter what you're racing or what you're doing, you guys are all trying to find the nooks and crannies.
Well, and I used to like it. I mean, I worked a dozen different series. I worked the local tracks. I worked the big leagues. And I don't care who it was I caught cheating, whether it was a Pro-Am car at Sunset or whether it was somebody in the truck series. When I caught them cheating, I'd look at them and go, love you, man. And they go, love me for what? My job security, brother. I got a job next week thanks to you.
Very true. All right, let's move on with some of the other news stories. Aspen Dental has stepped up to be the primary sponsor for Danica Patrick and the number 10 team with Stewart-Haas Racing after Nature's Bakery notified Stewart-Haas Racing they were unable to continue their sponsorship. And then later on, Thursday afternoon, Nature's Bakery actually came out. So here was the whole deal with Nature's Bakery. They notified Stewart-Haas Racing in December that they needed to modify their contract with Danica Patrick, and they were unhappy with some things. And then they notified them they were going to be canceling and not continuing. Well, there's a contract out there. I'm kind of on Stewart-Haas Racing's side on this.
Absolutely.
And so Stewart-Haas Racing said, well, that's breach of contract. You guys need to stick to it or else. And so the or else was they filed a lawsuit against Nature's Bakery. On Thursday, Nature's Bakery came out and said, we're not going to allow Stewart-Haas Racing to bully us. We weren't happy with the contract. We attempted to make changes to it. They were not receptive, and this is where we're at. But we're not going to allow a big team and a big company like Stewart-Haas Racing to bully us around. They kind of did the whole, we're just some little kids out here trying to get exposure and doing so. You signed a multi-million-dollar contract.
Multi-year contract.
I don't understand how. I guess I don't know. I mean, it's kind of funny to me, but to stay a little bit more neutral on this, Aspen Dental has stepped up. They're now going to be the primary sponsor for Danica Patrick in 2017. The new point system, I wanted to point this out too, because this was something I missed when NASCAR rolled out the stage points, the bonus points. When we talk about the point system for the Cup Series, it's interesting to note that first place gets 40 points, as they always have. Second place gets 35. So we talked about how there'd be this 5-point separation for the championship driver points that drivers will get when they win the race. Well, that's not a bonus. That's an established point system. Remember, there's no more bonuses for leading laps and leading the most laps. That's all been done away with.
Definitely a 5-point or 4-point bonus for winning the race.
Absolutely. First place gets 40 points. Second place gets 35, and then it drops by point incrementally on back to 36th, which is your final 1 point. And then 37th, 38th, 39th, and 40th, they all get 1 point also. It's important to note that when they get those, so when they win stages, they don't win championship driver bonus points. They win playoff bonus points, and those will come into factor if the driver moves on to the NASCAR playoff system.
Now, this is the first time I've actually seen this sitting here as we're recording the show, and I do find it interesting that they have the bonus in the Xfinity Series, but not in the Truck Series. There is no bonus, 32, 31.
Right.
Down to 1 at the end.
Also, drivers do get championship driver points for winning stages or finishing in the top 10 of stages. If they finish second in the stage, it's 9, third gets 8, fourth gets 7 points, on back to 10th, where they get 1 point. And those are championship driver points. Those are not playoff points. So the system is going to be, it's going to take a year to get used to. I think it's going to probably take about 10 races for you to kind of get your head around. But I like this system. It really is paying off for drivers that are up front the entire race. Not to say that drivers are going to be hanging out in 15th. That's not going to happen a lot. I don't think that happened in the past. But this rewards drivers in the top 10 for really pushing for those extra positions and those extra championship driver points.
Well, if guys use up their equipment a little more, I mean, what have we been running? Like 13, 14 winners the last couple seasons. Out of 16, there's usually 1 or 2 guys that get in on points.
Correct.
If we don't get to the 13, 14 winners and we have 4 cars, say, that get on points, we end up with 12 winners and we got 4 cars in on points. Guys that run up front are definitely going to have a definite point advantage.
Absolutely.
You know, so it won't have the finish of the race is not going to be near as important as what those stages are, because you get a couple 8 points that run third in both stages and still come in 10th in the race. Somebody else don't get any points from the stages and runs 4th or 5th in the race. You still got points on them.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's important to factor in the playoff points. So whenever they get bonus points for winning a stage and bonus points for winning the race, those playoff points don't just work in the first round. They continue through to the second and into the third round. That's huge for drivers, because I think one of the biggest examples is we always talked about whoever wins the Daytona 500 on the old system basically has 25 races to test, because they don't have to worry about getting into the chase anymore. They're locked into the chase. But now with the playoff system, which is just a rebranded version of the chase, now with the playoff system, whoever wins at Daytona, yeah, sure, they're still locked in to the playoff contest. But if they go and test for 25 races, they don't win any more races, they don't win any stages, they're going to be dramatically behind everybody else that has playoff bonus points, and that will continue to hurt them not only in the first round, but on through the next couple of rounds.
That's correct.
Because we talked about one of the biggest strategies for the first round. With 16 drivers, if you're in the top 10, all you got to do is finish consistently. That's not the case anymore. You've got to continue to race hard every single race. We've got a little bit long. We got to take a break. We'll come back at turn number 3. We'll talk with Brendan Gaughan, one of our show favorites, about trying to make the Daytona 500 next Sunday for the Cup Series. We'll come back here on the front stretch.
There is no such thing as an off-season at Joe's Karting. No matter how cold it is outside or how much snow is on the ground, you'll always be warm and dry inside at Joe's Karting, the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Located in Council Bluffs on 23rd Avenue next to AMC Theater. Find Joe's Karting on Facebook or head to joeskarting.com for hours, pricing, and a schedule of booked parties. That's joeskarting.com. Karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's Karting today and find out what all your friends already know.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Hi, Dave Despain with MAV TV, which is your television destination if you're looking for motorsports. Radio, you found it. You're listening to the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 3, and it's time to sit down with the driver of the number 62, Richard Childress Racing, for the Xfinity Series. And this guy is going to try to make the Daytona 500. You could be sitting at Quaker Steak and Lube in Council Bluffs next Sunday watching Brendan Gaughan battle for the Great American Race. Brendan, how you been, sir?
Great. How are you guys today? Happy New Year to you guys and all that good stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Enjoying your off season?
Always enjoying it, man. It's not much of an off season really for me. You know, I got so many different gigs that I do, so but it was nice to have Christmas with the family and all those sorts of things. And now we're getting ready to get back to work, get back to racing, and all the other things.
Did you go up in the mountains, do a little skiing?
Went to the mountains with the boys, and they got a little skiing in this year. Don't get to be as spoiled as years past because my oldest boy is in actual school now, so the 60 days a year that he used to get to ski is all gone. But we still had a good time.
That's good to hear. Talk to us about how this deal came along with you attempting to qualify for the 500 on February 26th.
Well, you know Jay Robinson, the guy that I drove for a couple years ago, he called me up over Christmas break and said he might have something if I was interested to look at. And I was like, Jay, I'm not really, he knows, him and I are pretty good friends. And he told me about Mr. Mark Beard, and Mark is trying to make the Daytona 500. And he bought a good car, and just one. It's not like we have a backup car or any, big plans, but he bought a good car. Mm-hmm. And this whole business is about what you got. And Daytona and Talladega, it's different than most places. NASCAR gives you some of the springs. NASCAR gives you most of the shocks. They kind of control your setup, so to speak. So if you buy a good car from the start, the biggest piece of the whole deal is a good motor. Mm-hmm. And he said that the guy went and got ECR motors. And so I called Richie Gilmore at ECR and said, hey, this guy Mark Beard got a couple of our motors? He goes, oh, yeah, no, he spent the high dollar rate. He got 2 good motors. Oh, wow. And so he said, why are you asking? I said, well, I might go drive for it. Richie Gilmore said, well, we're going to make sure we get some real good ones out there. So it worked out in his favor that, having me and what I do with the team already. And I told the man that, I made him a fair deal. He talked to me about what we wanted to do, and I've always been kind of a fair guy on things. And we talked about what we wanted, and I said, you know what, with an ECR motor and a Chevrolet that is an old RCR Chevrolet that came from Levine Racing, I'm willing to jump in it.
Is this just going to be a one-time deal, or if you go out there and win it, are you guys going to put together a couple of different races?
No, if we go out there and win it, that's going to be awesome. I might even retire on the spot if I
think
win
so.
It. Be like,
yeah.
See you, Richard. Have fun. But we're running Xfinity for points. We're not going to be having conversations about I'm changing sports or we're going the next week. So we're one race.
Well, we've already had one sudden retirement in this sport, so let's not have a second one. I just can't take it.
Listen, if I win it, I may drop the mic and go, thank you, goodbye.
Just don't drop the trophy. That thing's pretty heavy. You could break a foot.
I won't. Trust me, I won't drop that.
Let's talk about your 2016 season. We had a lot of fun hooking up with you down at Kansas for the Crewman for a Day contest. You guys took amazing care of our contestants that won that race. But you seem to have a lot of fun with this chase format. Even though you were eliminated because of the results of Kansas, do you still enjoy the format?
No, the format's phenomenal. This format is amazing. I would not want to change this format for anything. It keeps you going the whole time. It's a deal where the guys stay upbeat, the fans love it. It's what you want. Mm-hmm. There is no doubt in my mind that chase format is phenomenal, and I would not want to get rid of it at all.
How big of a plus is it going to be with the limited exposure for the Cup drivers to come down?
A lot of people make a lot of thing about the Cup drivers, and I don't care that they're there. Honestly, I've said that repeatedly. You know me, Dirk. That's never been a big deal to me. I don't care about it.
You're not going to back away from a challenge. I know that.
No, I mean, but a lot of the guys, especially the media, you guys everybody's always asking about that stuff. For me, it makes the chance for you to have a better shot at getting the win. I mean, when they're not there, we win more often. So that's definitely a positive. So it'll be there, and we'll go run for it. But it doesn't matter to me that they're there or not.
Well, I'm kind of looking at the backside of it. Actually, you're going to end up with some people running in some of those cars in the chase races there at the end of the year that I mean, I don't know if they should be there. I don't think anybody's going to purposely put somebody in a car that's not qualified to be there. Don't get me wrong, but there's going to be some mistakes made in the chase that a Cup driver being in that car wouldn't be making.
Well, I look at it, it's opportunity for people. Everybody complains that drivers don't have the opportunities, and so now you have an opportunity. You get a lot of people that are going to be given a chance that didn't have a chance before. So I think that's the best part of this that nobody's really talked about is that there'll be people that didn't have this opportunity before, and now you give them that chance. That's fantastic for them, and I'm not worried about the mistake side of it. Anybody can make mistakes, even the veterans make mistakes. It's just I like the fact that maybe somebody might get a shot that didn't have a shot before.
Anything different going into this season? I know you've signed I believe it's a 1-year deal with Richard Childress Racing. You guys may be working on a 2018 deal, but do you look at 2017 any differently since you're on a 1-year deal?
Every deal I have is 1 year. I haven't done more than a 1-year deal in 15 years.
Why is that?
Since he signed for his dad last time.
That also was you didn't need a deal during those days. I'm not all that worried about it. I want to race and I want to do well, and I don't want to have somebody stuck with me, and I don't want to be stuck with somebody if it's it's not working out. So I don't worry about it. We just do 1-year deals, and I'm happy with it.
That's interesting. I figured you would want that security to know I'm with RCR, I'm with this team for the next couple of years. We can start working and building on things, but you're comfortable. You've got the sponsorship. You've got everything taken care of, and I get the feeling that RCR is a good businessman. He's a good guy to deal with too.
Nope, we have a great relationship, and I'm heading back to the Hall of Fame. I leave tomorrow to go back to honor my boss at the Hall of Fame and be there for his day, and we're really excited about that. That's a big deal for all of us there at RCR. But what an amazing, the fact I've got to drive for Roger Penske, I've got to drive for Rusty Wallace. I've got to drive for Richard Childress. I've driven for 3 Hall of Fame owners, and I've been very blessed.
Some of those videos they're putting together of Richard's career have been real kind of neat on Facebook because I've been keeping an eye on those. I don't know if Matt's putting those together or who is, but they're really nice.
Well, it's really cool. A lot of people don't remember that Richard was a driver.
Yeah. Oh.
That's what he started as. That's where the number 3 started as Richard Childress's number as a driver. Mm-hmm. So that's a big deal. That's people don't get that all the time, and maybe they forget some of that stuff. But it's very cool that I get to drive for him. It's very cool that he's been inducted into the NASCAR Hall, and we will be there to be there to support him and say thank you.
Speaking of videos on Facebook, how much grief did you get for the clip of you running from the infield back to your car at Kansas?
My grandfather always told me any press is good press, and that thing gets played. That thing still gets played. So hey, if people like it, way to go. I don't know what was so funny about it, but you know what? I challenge most people to try to beat me in a 100-yard dash, but after 100 yards, we're in trouble.
I just thought it was the look on your face when I think you tossed your hat to a reporter, and you were kind of like,
it's one of my pit crew guys.
Hot potato, where's my helmet? I got to get back in the car and get some laps logged. That's what I loved about it.
Well, the thing is, people said, oh, why were you running? I go, listen, the guys just busted their butt. This is the chase, man. 2 points keep people in and out of the championship here. And they told me that we got a shot to get back in that race car to get back running, and they worked hard to do it. What, do I just walk up to them and go, yeah, I'm coming, guys. I'll get right in. No, man, this is the playoffs. This is sport. We got to work our butt off, and they worked their tails off. I'm going to do the same for them, and we were in a hurry to get back out there and get a couple laps, try to gain a couple spots.
Well, I get pretty exhausted because that infield care center is on the north side of the Cup garage. And so you had a long jaunt to get over to the Xfinity garage, which is on the south side of the track. I mean, that was a long haul. I get winded just walking that distance. I can't imagine trying to hop back in a car, get those seatbelts tightened down, and then get back out there and start turning laps at Kansas again.
Once I got in the race car, it's definitely a little bit easier. But getting the seatbelts on was maybe a little bit of an issue. But, we got it done. We got on the race car, and it was, like I said, you do what you do, man. It's what type of guy would I be? What type of race car driver? What type of guy would want to work for me if I just walked back up to the car?
Yeah. Is Shane Wilson back for you for another season?
Oh yeah, no. Shane and I are still there. We got most of the same guys, and got me some new over the wall pit crew members, and I got me the old experienced team this year. The guys, the veterans that. A lot of the kids went to the Cup Series, and the veterans are sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh, gee, no! Don't give me the guy with 8 years of Cup experience, please. Don't throw me in the briar patch."
How's Ray been with the cookie machine?
Cooking machine.
Yeah, I see Ray's always bringing cookies up to the shop.
Oh, Rayanne! I'm like Rayanne. She takes care of the boys, man. She a great fan, a great friend. And the boys love her because she does bring a lot of cookies. And we got a couple guys that are type 1 diabetics on the team. She's so sweet, she even makes sugar-free cookies for them.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Wow. Yeah, I got quite a kick out of listening to you and Shane on the radio last year. It's kind of fun to hear that chemistry between you two firsthand, because you guys do get to joking around on the radio a little bit when most of the time you tune in and you hear guys cussing and getting upset because of their cars, but there you and Shane are just kind of kicking back and having a good time.
Well, listen, if I cuss him, he's going to cuss me back. and then when I get out of the race car, he's going to look and go, "Really?" I mean, we've been around each other too long. We got great chemistry. We don't need to play all these games and do all this stuff. So we're pretty good about it, and I'm happy. He's happy. I got my spotter that I no longer have the Batman with me most of the time. I got Stevie Reeves, who's been with me now about 4 years. So I mean, we got great chemistry between the group we got, and I'm still enjoying what I'm doing.
Dan, if you enjoy that, you need to go back and find some excerpts from when he was driving the car for Roger and some of the radio conversations that made airtime on TV when they were together.
With me and Buddy Baker had one of the best ones. I hit the wall probably 5 laps in a row at Darlington, just kept striping it. I mean, just pow, pow, pow. Buddy Baker came on the radio and goes, "Hey, son, why don't you give that wall a break for a few laps, would you?" Yes, sir. Working on that really hard.
Well, Brendan, good luck to you in the Daytona 500. I know you got to qualify for it, so we're going to send you all the front stretch of luck we can get you so you could be in that starting lineup. And then good luck in the 2017 season. We can't wait to see you at Iowa and at Kansas and see you in Victory Lane a few times.
Thanks, man. Talk to you guys soon.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Brendan.
Catch him usually on Saturdays in the Xfinity Series for the 62 of Richard Childress Racing. I didn't do my research very well. I don't know what car number he's racing for the Cup for the Daytona 500.
He ran the 62 the last time he attempted, so I know that number's not taken.
True.
So my guess is that's what'll be on the car, and I don't know because we didn't ask him, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see South Point somewhere on it also, because his other car is dressed up primarily with South Point.
Yep, that's the family business and the primary sponsor for that. And always love talking to Brendan. He's a very energetic, entertaining guy. We are working on getting the Crewman for a Day deal back. We are working with, if Kansas Speedway is going to have us back, I think it's a cool thing to do it at the big show like that. But then again, it would be fun to do it at Iowa Speedway this year. We need to open up a line of communication with them and see if it's available. But we're going to try to get that at Kansas or Iowa.
Well, it'd be great if we get 2 of them.
That's true. Absolutely true.
More winners, the merrier.
Because it's such a different atmosphere when we go to Iowa. I always talk about walking into that place, and you walk up to look over the track. You're walking into the place, and it kind of feels like an a next level dirt track race. It almost feels like the Knoxville Nationals with everything that's going on outside. And then there's just kind of this, it's a nice small feel to it that you don't feel like you're in a coliseum and you're overwhelmed. You walk in and you can see the whole track in your perspective and you can see everything that's going on. But then also for the crews and the drivers and the media, it's also kind of a relaxed time because the Cup Circus isn't there. It's the Xfinity standalone weekend, and they're able to shine. And I'm telling you, those guys are so laid back and so nice. If you got pit passes at Iowa, you're going to meet majority of those Xfinity drivers, and they'll stop and talk with you.
Well, also, if we could set it up with the Xfinity and truck race weekend.
Yeah.
That would be a nice thing because then you could go and, wander through the truck pits and see some of the up-and-comers and some of the guys that have been there a while. Matt Crafton, I don't think is going anywhere. He's going to be in the truck series forever.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got the news that Rico is no longer racing in the truck series for 2017 at least. Hopefully, he can get a sponsorship deal done for 2018. And we can get him back up here, but he's going to go play in the dirt for the rest of the year.
Yeah, you never know. If something pops here right at the end, until that green flag drops at Daytona, he could end up in a truck.
That's true. That's very true. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back in turn number 4 to wrap the show up and to finally make the official announcement for the Front Stretch Pick'ems contest for 2017. Stick around. Still a lot to come.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4. On the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Hey everybody, this is Kyle Larson, driver of the Target Chevy number 42, and you're listening to the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. Heading into turn number 4. Boy, the show just blasted right along today. I want to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us. Turns 1 and 2, we talked a lot about the NASCAR news topics. Brendan Gaughan joined us last turn in turn number 3 to talk about his effort for the Daytona 500. And then now it's turn number 4, time to talk about the Pick'ems contest. So we've been working hard in the offseason to try to find some sort of a way to get the human element out of the contest.
Well, we've talked about it on a couple of the shows
right.
And how it's just taken, your couple hours of your every Sunday, and that's not the way this game was designed to be or meant to be, but it just morphed into that.
And it kind of makes sense that now that it's grown to 75 players, that it's time that it's outgrown the email Excel sheet system, and so now it's going to have to move to something more. And we've been working with a Canadian company. It's a Canadian-based web service.
You never told me that.
So we've been working with NASCAR Pools Online. Rick's a great guy. He's been very patient with me, asking lots of questions because this Pick'ems contest is kind of my little baby. It started out as a text message group between Buddy, Andrew, and I, and expanded onto the show, and it had 25 people that were involved in it, and then expanded to the next year when you joined us. And I think you were a part of the first year we did it. That's how you got involved with the show, was that you were in the contest the first year.
Yeah, Buddy giving me some grief about something, but I didn't even join until like the middle of the year, but I jumped in and played the rest of the year.
Yeah, it was a lot of it. So it got to be really fun, just the little simple rules that we had. And so to try to preserve as much of that as possible while moving to this online. And then also kind of, like I said, this contest is kind of my little baby. I mean, it's my way of getting really close with our fans and interacting and having a lot of fun. So it was very hard. It was honestly very hard for me to hand this over to a website, but I think it's the right call. I think we're going to make things a lot easier for everybody. Honestly, it's desktop friendly and it's mobile friendly. I was playing around with it on my phone the other day, having no problems navigating around, and I have an Android device. I would imagine that the iPhone's going to be no different, and it should be fairly easy, but you can log on right now, NASCARPoolsOnline.com. If you'd like a simple link to join the contest, you can email us, frontstretchradio@gmail.com, and we'll get you some information. Now, let's talk about some of the rules that have slightly modified or gone away from last year's contest. Last year, we said that all picks were due by the time the green flag waved, and that allowed for rain delays, any kind of issues to where the race didn't get started, and it gave you a little bit more time to kind of watch the pre-race. That's not the ability anymore. This is scheduled race start. So the Daytona 500 is scheduled at 1 p.m. this coming Sunday Central Time. You got to have your picks in by 1 p.m. or you're SOL.
Let's just face it, there's not a whole lot that's going to happen between 1 and 1:21 or whatever when the green flag drops.
Right.
So this shouldn't be this big a deal, but you just need to remember it's Eastern time on there. So you got to back that hour up. For those in the Midwest, we do have people, and I know some of you people are going to freak off of this, but we've got a guy from New York that plays this. We've got a bunch of people in the Kansas City area that play it. We've got them in Denver. We've got them in North Carolina. We're not quite global, but we're definitely nationwide.
We're getting there. We're getting there. We've got a couple of soldiers that play along in this. And
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So anyways, absolutely what Dirk said. If you look at the listed times on the NASCARPoolsOnline.com, once you sign up for the contest and you join it and you look at the times, those times are posted in Eastern time. So you got to make the conversion for your time zone. And again, you have to have your picks in by the time the green flag waves for each weekend's race. And in order to participate in the contest, last year we allowed you to join as late as the 4th race of the season. This year, all picks are locked and all contest is locked when the Daytona 500 scheduled time at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you don't get signed up by the Daytona 500, you're going to have to wait for one of the 5-week contests, which we'll get to here in a couple of weeks. If the contestant does not get your pick in on time for a scheduled weekend's race, then you will not get the points for that day. Contestants can pick a driver a maximum of 3 times for the entire NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series schedule. That's rule number 3. Now, before we did it to where you could pick them twice in the regular season, once in the postseason, once in the playoffs, or you could pick them once in the regular season and twice in the playoff system. We can't regulate that anymore. We don't have that ability, so it's just going to be 3 times overall. One of the other rules that went away was one of my favorite rules, which made it really hard for you to pick a hot streak driver, was that you couldn't pick a driver within 5 races. That's now gone. You can pick a driver back-to-back. You can pick him 3 weekends in a row if you want to. You can ride a hot streak all you want to, and but you still can only pick him 3 times in the season.
And if the guy wins 3 races, obviously he's going to have a pretty good shot in the chase. Well, if you make the chase, you won't have him there.
Right. Here's where things get a little bit confusing with the new points system, but follow me along really closely. Contestants will receive the Monster Energy Cup Championship driver points, the driver they picked for each race weekend. We will be using the new 2017 Championship points system, not the playoff bonus point system. So if your driver happens to win a segment, let's say your driver swept the weekend, won the race, and won both segments of the race, had an absolutely dominant race. You got yourself 60 championship driver points. No playoff bonus points will be factored into this once the playoff starts. We have a slightly different playoff bonus system that we're going to award 3 bonus points for each time a contestant picks a race winner. It's the same we did it last year. It's the same we've done it through the years. So this is a little bit of a mesh up between the 2017 rules and the 2016 rules. For this contest, we don't have a way of sorting by wins first and points second. So last year, it was all focused on making the points because there were some people that had 4 picks of race winners, but less points than people that had 3 race winners. And they still got in because we classified first on wins, then on points. We had to get rid of that wins for this new contest, for this new system. Now it's all by points, but tiebreakers will be broken by wins.
Oh, okay.
That's very important to understand. So now it's about being smart, picking as many points as you possibly can, which would obviously come down to race wins. And then if there's any ties through anywhere in the series, then we'll break those ties by wins, top 3s, top 5s, top 10s.
Okay, another change.
If a contestant picks a driver that receives a championship points penalty, the contestant will also receive that points penalty from the race. As an example, last season, Kyle Larson finished 3rd at the June Michigan race, but failed post-race inspection. NASCAR handed down a 15-point driver penalty. Contestants that picked Kyle Larson for that race were awarded 24 points instead of the 39 that he would have received had he not failed post-race inspection. The playoff system is just like it was last year. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It's slightly different. Instead of taking 15 contestants, we're going to get a little bit closer to the way NASCAR does it. We're going to take 16 contestants. So one more contestant will make it into the playoff season this year for the Pick'ems contest. Starting by race number 26, we will rank by points, and then any tiebreakers will be established by wins, top 3s, top 5s, top 10s. Starting at race number 26, the top 16 contestants will be reset to 2,000 points, and then contestants will receive 3 bonus points per win for each, they'll receive 3 bonus points for each win during the first 26 races. So they could get bonus points. You pick 4, you pick 5, like you were talking about, Dirk. If they pick 5 winners throughout the season, they're going to start at Chicagoland with 2,015 points, as opposed to somebody who only picks 4 winners, they're going to start at 2012.
Okay, but we're not going to award the 1-point bonus for segment wins.
Correct.
That NASCAR is going to award in the chase. We are not doing that.
Right now, no. The segment wins, the bonuses for segments don't count, but the championship driver points do count. Following results of Homestead, the contestants with the most accumulated points will be declared the winner of the 2017 contest. Here's the cool one. I'm really excited about this. Let me back up before I announce that final part of the contest. The contest costs us to run on this site because we don't have a lot of money. We don't have a big budget for this stuff. Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners has stepped up and offered to pay all entry fees for the entire contest for the season long and for the 5-week contests. So he's going to make sure that this league is absolutely free again. Remember we talked about a couple of weeks ago, maybe we should charge $5, maybe we should charge just a couple of bucks. What can we do? Well, we were getting into some legal issues there, and Rick stepped in. He actually emailed me and said, can I help out with this contest? I'd love to help out any way you can. So Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners stepping up, helping us out with that, and he's going to be the official sponsor of the Front Stretch Pick'ems contest. Rick also offered to pony up a little extra cash, so there will now be a trophy. There's going to be a trophy that's going to go around. It's going to be yours for life. You'll display that baby on your mantle. You can say it loud and proud that I was the Pick'ems contest champion, and hopefully we'll be able to keep that for the remainder of the show's existence. So you'll get yourself a trophy, and you'll get first pick at the prize vault. Second place on back. Incrementally, they'll get pick at the prize vault just like last year. That's it. That's the contest. NASCARPoolsOnline.com. You can email us, frontstretchradio@gmail.com. I will send you a link in the information. Otherwise, if you just want to go to NASCARPoolsOnline.com, the pool league is 17 Pick'em, 17 Pick'em, all one word, no apostrophe. And the league password to get in is Wealth Partners, all one word, no caps, no undercase, no nothing. Wealth Partners is the password to get in. But again, if you email me, frontstretchradio@gmail.com, we'll get you that information. You can get the link to go right to it and start adding your picks right away.
It should be another good season. And again, a big thank you to Rick Havenridge with helping us out on this, because we really weren't sure what we were going to do if that hadn't come together.
But it was great that Rick Havenridge, he was looking for a way to get involved with the show. So Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners steps up, says, I'll pay the entry fees for everybody. We got to wrap it up for today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back next weekend. Boy, Dirk, I didn't even tell you about this. We are working on getting an interview with a Monster Jam driver, and we may have an interview with the driver of the number 27 Menards Richard Childress Racing machine of Paul Menard. Working on getting that interview scheduled. They reached out to us, so we're trying to find time to get that done. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this Sunday. Please tune in next Sunday as we'll do it all again. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The official watering hole of The Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs is the high-octane excitement you've been looking for. It's the Metro's largest indoor track with eco-friendly, low-emission engines. You can enjoy fast-paced road course racing just across the river at Joe's Karting, located near Bass Pro in the Mid-America Center on 23rd Avenue and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. Open Monday to Thursday, 2 to 10, Fridays until 11, Saturdays 11 to 11, and Sundays noon to 8.